So we have some very interesting news. We're moving into this story here about Medi Hassan. So believe it or not, Medi Hassan apparently is back. Now, we do remember he was somewhat demoted when he was a part of MSNBC. He had his own show on MSNBC. And then after that interview with Mark Regev, like I said before, and his pushback against Israel and support for the Palestinian people, Medi Hassan was basically demoted. They canceled his show and basically put him on a different show with another host. And then it was literally a couple days after that, he announced that he was leaving MSNBC. Long story short, he was pushed out. This is a way that companies can push you out, right? Well, Medi Hassan is back and he has a huge announcement. We're going to get into this and also his recent appearance on CNN. Listen to this. It's from the Washington Post. Medi Hassan launches his own media company after leaving MSNBC. So here we go again, where we've had Tucker Carlson launch his own company. Don Lemon hasn't launched his own company, but he has announced that he's also going to be actually premiering videos on Twitter, just like Tucker Carlson. So he signed I think he has some type of deal or contract in reference to that. He also just got quite a settlement from CNN. I think it was over $1 million settlement that he just received as well. So what we're seeing is there's this trend of more so these mainstream media commentators that are either fired or leave on their own or pushed out, leaving mainstream media, but then choosing to start media on their own so that they don't actually have to answer to, the forces and the powers that be that control some of these networks. So let's go ahead and get into this. The pugnacious liberal commentator Medi Hassan, whose departure from MSNBC after his shows were canceled, triggered an outpouring of support last fall. He is forming his own digital media company. He's the latest cable news defector to strike out on his own with a digital media venture. Though most such offerings have come from conservative pundits such as Megyn Kelly, Bill O'Reilly, and Tucker Carlson, no one really on the progressive left has been able to pull off anything similar. That's coming from Medi himself. The company will be called Zeteo, after a Greek word that means to seek, and will launch in full in April on the Substack platform after a gradual rollout beginning Wednesday. I want to comment about this in reference to the Substack platform. I'm on Substack. A lot of us that have YouTube shows have a Substack. Some people use it to write articles. Some of us also promote our videos on Substack. It's sent to you as a notification, so you know it's there. We have to remember, it was just last year that Elon Musk actually got into a spat with the creator of Substack, where he felt like because Substack was launching Substack Notes, they were going to be a competitor for Twitter. So he made this announcement that he was going to actually shadow ban these posts that had Substack links included in the tweets. So a lot of the writers, like people like Matt Taibbi, Aaron Mate, all of them that have these Substack accounts where they do a lot of their journalism there, of course, they tweet those out, right? So Elon was trying to suppress the content that Substack content that was being shared on Twitter because he saw them as a competitor. Now, recently, I just saw an article that said Substack is also launching DMs, just like Twitter. So Substack is basically opening up themselves to all these different ideas and opportunities. And now you see Medi Hassan's new network is also going to be featured on Substack. So the question is, could Substack become the next big platform? It goes on to say the company will publish a weekly streaming show, Medi Unfiltered, hosted by Medi, a weekly podcast, and a regular slate of written pieces by a host of prominent contributors. Full access to the site will eventually cost users $6 per month, with an annual subscription. And this leads me to this comment as well. More people are moving to a subscription-based model. Tucker Carlson is doing the same thing. Some people who have YouTube channels already do this, right? Where they have some videos that are free and available for everyone on YouTube. And then there's some content that is subscription based, where you either have to become a patron for some people, or you have to subscribe to their Substack and be a paid subscriber on Substack. But this is starting to become more of the norm. I myself don't do paywalled content. That's not my thing. I understand why some people do it, but all of my content is available. Even the premium content on Rockfin is still available for free on YouTube. So for me, that's not my jam, but you're seeing this happen more, you guys. Breaking Points has a subscription model that you can, buy into as well. And I think the reason this is happening is because people don't want to depend on monetization from these platforms that they're using anymore, right? Hassan said that he raised $4 million to launch the site from friends, family, and viewers who were concerned about his departure from MSNBC. He raised $4 million. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know what we could have done with that money? Do you know what, if I raised $4 million for mutual aid, you know what I could do with that money here in Boston? How I could really help people? This guy raised $4 million to start a network. We have the money in this country, but sometimes I feel like it's being used in the wrong places. The priorities are out of whack. The network faced a blizzard of backlash when it announced in late November that both Hassan's traditional TV show and his streaming show would be canceled without giving a reason for the decision. I told you what the reason was. The reason was they said, you too much favoritism towards Palestinians, bruh. I'm not someone who can just sit back and just not have an outlet where I can say what I need to say. I'm restless always. Although he will be the face of the new media company, Hassan said it won't be all about him. This is not the Medi Hassan network like the Tucker Carlson network. It's about building something that endures with multiple voices. So the question that I have, and I have a couple clips here from Medi to show you as well. The question that I have is, when he talks about other voices that will be included, does that mean people that are in left independent media? For example, would he include someone like Brianna Joy Gray, Katie Halper? Just questions. I'm picking out people that have bigger channels, so don't mention me. But would he include people like that have left voices, or would it only be people that are a part of mainstream media? So the mainstream media's version of left. That's what I'm curious about, because we've seen people like, we've seen Tiffany, the Native Land podcast. So we've seen people come from mainstream media and they said, we're starting this new podcast, but all the people that are on the podcast are basically in the pocket of the DNC. They're a part of the establishment. They're not radical voices. So my question to Medi Hassan is, are you going to include any radical voices or any voices that are further to the left than you? That's what I'm curious about, and not necessarily people that work for mainstream media. So he goes on to shout this out here on Twitter. He said, a reminder to pay and subscribe. So again, he's letting you know that this is a subscription-based model platform here, and he's already announced the launch there. He also released a video about this. He said, some personal and professional news. I'm launching a new media company. It's called Zeteo. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but here is the announcement here.
What? You thought I was gone? Oh no, you can't get rid of me that easily. I'm back with a whole new media company, in fact, my own. We're calling it Zeteo, the ancient Greek word that goes back to Socrates and Plato, which means to seek out, to inquire, to get to the truth. And that is the guiding principle behind my new media venture. Zeteo will bring you hard-hitting interviews and unsparing analysis that you won't find elsewhere. Shows, podcasts, op-eds, newsletters. We have it all. And it's not just me. I've been busy a la Nick Fury assembling an Avengers-style team of contributors, the kind of big names from media.
Oh my God. Oh. We gotta see this again.
And it's not just me. I've been busy a la Nick Fury assembling an Avengers-style team of contributors.
He said he's assembling the Avenger. This is too much, man. Who came up with this line, man? He's going to be part of the MCU. I'm assembling an Avengers style of contributor.
Kind of big names from media, activism, and Hollywood that will blow your mind. Now, you know.
So here's the part that we know is a big reveal, right? The kind of big names from media, activism, and Hollywood. So let me tell you something about the activism part. I bet you it won't be grassroots on the ground activists. For example, is he going to feature Afeni? Afeni is a grassroots on the ground activist. If it's happening in DC, Afeni is likely to be at one or two of them. Is he going to feature Afeni? Is he going to feature Chuck Modi? What about Code Pink? Is he going to feature the women from Code Pink on that platform? Probably not. It'll probably be the mainstream activists. Like he'll probably feature people that were a part of BLM, not the grassroots activists on the ground, the ones who made all that damn money and took that money and ran away with it. He'll probably bring them on. Hollywood. Celebrities? Oh like what? Willem said, will he feature Matt Taibbi? Oh, see, right? So like what? How do you know? No. If he's featuring people from Hollywood, that already tells you what direction this is going to go in.
Kind of big names from media, activism, and Hollywood that will blow your mind. Now, you know I've never been afraid to ask the tough questions, and I plan to continue doing that, including right now. Will you join me and help build Zeteo from the ground up by becoming a subscriber, a paid subscriber? Sign up below and let's change the news together.
Doesn't this set look similar to Breaking Point's new set? Doesn't Breaking Points have, wait a minute, guys, check this out, bruh. Doesn't Breaking Points have like pictures like from DC of different, memorial sites? Like, because here there's a Capitol building, right? Doesn't Breaking Points have something similar to this? What is this, man? This is my second time looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute. Doesn't this look similar to Breaking Point set? Oh, man.
Subscriber, a paid subscriber. Sign up below and let's change the news together. Because it's time for a new media organization that isn't afraid.
Okay, Eric, we're going to pull up. Can you pull up a Breaking Points video while I go to the comments? Because I want to see, just pull up any Breaking Points video. I swear I think this set looks like Breaking Point set. Thank you for the super chat. I am Thor. We are Thor. We received an email from somebody that claimed to be you. We just want to confirm it was you. We have to be very careful. Was it you or not? We are ready to do an interview about our group. If it was a response to an email, it was probably me. If it was not a response and it was like the first email, that probably was not me. But my email address is actually in the details portion of my videos. So you can find it there. You got it, Eric. Okay, thank you. Hold up, son. Check this out. So here's the breaking point set. This is the new breaking point set, right? Okay, see how the Capitol building is right here? Do they ever zoom out on breaking? Whoa, 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 whoa. Right there. Okay, so you see this? All right, now let's come out and let's go back to the Medi thing. Oh, where am I? Don't they look somewhat similar? This is funny to me, man. This is funny to me. All right. Anyhow, Medi Hassan actually was just on CNN recently. So it's interesting. Like, he's still making appearances on mainstream media, or at least he is again. And this is in reference to Israel and Gaza. So listen to what he said when he went on to CNN. I think this is also another way for him to get the word out. I started a new media company. So it seems like he's welcomed on CNN, but not on MSNBC.
Medi, thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to see you. Look, Israel, as we just laid out in the last few hours, have tried to frame this as a tragedy, but just not one that is their fault. The IDF says it fired warning shots to try to disperse the crowd around that convoy. Do you lend any credibility to that explanation? And from the eyes of the world, does it matter what the explanation is for what we saw unfold?
Well, Abby, thanks so much for having me on the show, and thank you for that very important, very powerful intro you did just there. In terms of believing the Israelis, I would say that it took multiple innocent black people to die at the hands of police in this country, whether it's Breonna Taylor, whether it's Freddie Gray, whether it's George Floyd, for people in our industry, Abby, to start saying, well, maybe we shouldn't just blindly believe police statements after shootings happen. And I feel like we still haven't quite reached that point in the Middle East with the Israeli military. The Israeli military tend to say things that turn out not to be true, both before Gaza, when they killed Shireen Abu Akleh, a US citizen, and lied about it, or during this conflict. So many lies the Israeli military has told about, you know, a terrorist guard list under the Rantisi hospital, a command and control center under the Al-Shifa hospital, a documentary in Lebanon that they claimed was Palestinians faking their own wounds. So many you can't even count. And now we are told today, well, actually, it was just a stampede, even though eyewitnesses, Abby, say that the Israelis opened fire. Israeli tanks opened fire without warning, according to one eyewitness in the Washington Post.
So you see, this is why they got rid of him at MSNBC, because he called Israel out for lying. And I have many criticisms of Mehdi Hasan. I thought what he did to Matt Taibbi was BS. I thought that was dirty, and he was wrong in reference to what he said to Matt Taibbi about him falsifying information. But he's good on this issue with Israel and Gaza. And because he questioned Israel live on the air on his show, and he really pushed back against Netanyahu's advisor, that's one of the reasons why I believe they got rid of him.
Doctors say that the bodies they got at the hospital, you showed the pictures of people on donkeys, were mostly bullet wounds, not stampede wounds. The Israelis opened fire on hungry people trying to get flour. It's being called a flour massacre for that reason. And you asked, is it a tipping point? I mean, in any normal world, it should be. In any other conflict, it would be, Abby. When Putin did stuff like this in Ukraine, we condemned him. When Assad did stuff like this in Syria, we condemned him. When Israel...
Uh-oh. Here it comes. They don't like you to say this, though.
Condemned him. When Assad did stuff like this in Syria, we condemned him. When Israel starves hundreds of thousands of people and then shoots people who go to get flour, where's the condemnation for the United States government? The State Department spokesman would not condemn Israel today. So it's a tragedy. Is it a tipping point? I wish it was. I suspect it isn't.
Let me pause here for a second. He's still wrong on Assad. I don't understand how, and Danny Haiphong mentioned this as well. I don't understand how some people who get the issue about Israel and Palestine so correct still get the Syria issue wrong. We literally have a journalist named Aaron Mate who won a freaking award for debunking that story. And people still continue to spread these lies about Assad and Syria. It's unbelievable.
President Biden has said is that he has acknowledged the events that happened and says it will likely complicate the negotiations that they've been working on for a temporary ceasefire. From Biden's perspective, do you think this could be the incident that pushes him to actually rethink how he approaches this relationship with this particular Israeli government and this war?
As I argued in a Guardian piece recently, Joe Biden has the power to pick up the phone and end this war. He can ring the Israeli prime minister and say, we're cutting you off. We're cutting off aid. We're cutting off armaments. Israelis themselves, Israeli generals say, we can't do this war without America. He hasn't done it. He didn't do it after 10,000 dead. He didn't do it after 20,000 dead. Today we crossed 30,000 dead. You have to ask the question why. This is a man who's seen as the great comforter in chief, the great empath, has had huge personal tragedy in his own family, and yet 30,000 Palestinians, according to his own defense secretary today, 25,000 women and children. How on earth has he not stopped the war till now? How on earth are we still debating this? And Abby, on the situation on aid, I just got to point out here, 4 out of 5 of the hungriest people in the world are in Gaza right now. Even with or without those aid trucks, people are starving. A 2-month-old baby called Mahmoud Fatou starved to death earlier this week in Gaza. This is not a natural disaster. This is a man-made famine. Food is plentiful, it's available, it's a few miles away, and yet it's being blocked. In fact, at the Israeli crossing, Abby, I don't know how many CNN viewers know that people are putting up bouncy castles, Israeli protesters, and eating popcorn and candy, cotton candy, and blocking the aid. That is crazy.
Let me pause here for a second. So the part that he mentioned there about how Joe Biden can just stop, basically funding Israel, that's really what he's saying. It's true. Because let me ask you a question. Those of you who are parents in the chat and you give your kids allowance. Okay. So when I was a kid, I used to get allowance, like doing my chores and, getting good grades, like stuff like that. My parents would give me allowance. Now, if you give your kids allowance and you notice that they're spending their allowance on things that you told them not to buy, right? So whatever your rules are for your children, whether it's, I don't know, music that you feel like they shouldn't be listening to at their age, or let's say they're spending all their allowance on junk food or whatever rules you have. And the next time you go to give them allowance, you say, okay, don't spend this money on junk food. And you give it to them one more time and they still go and they spend all their allowance on junk food. Do you keep giving them allowance and expect them to spend it differently? So when we talk about the U.S. funding Israel, if you're waving your finger at Netanyahu and you're saying, protect the civilians as much as possible, Israel is losing support, which is true. Internationally, Israel is losing a lot of support. And you keep giving the money and they keep killing Palestinian civilians, just like even people are trying to just get aid. They still keep using those weapons against the civilians after you told them not to do so. You cut off the aid to Israel. You cannot continue to give aid to Israel and expect them to do something differently in reference to the Palestinian civilians. As long as you keep giving them the weapons, they're going to continue to kill these people.
Do you think, Mehdi, that there is look, I think you understand that you say President Biden can just pick up the phone and cut it all off. You also understand he probably won't do that. So if you were to give him advice today, knowing what he is likely to be able to get to a yes on, what is the one thing that you think he should do today that would make this better?
Wrong question, Abby. The question that you should be asking is, when she said here that Biden won't do that, he probably won't cut off the aid. And then she proceeds with, oh, what do you think you would ask him or you would tell him to do if you were with him or whatever, et cetera. The question that Abby should be asking is, why won't he do it? Why won't he do it? You ask that question to Mehdi, and Mehdi's answer should be because our government is controlled by the Israeli lobby. Because Joe Biden has taken the most money from the Israeli lobby, going all the way back to 1990, than any other politician that we have had in DC. That's the test. Because you can call out all these mistakes that you feel the Biden administration is doing. You can call out everything that Israel is doing. But until I hear you call out the lobby, the funding, and the money, you're not serious for me.
Marginally better tomorrow for Gazans.
Simply, it is get a ceasefire, and it is within his power to get a ceasefire. It's within the power of the UN Security Council to get a ceasefire. Remember, the rest of the world wants a ceasefire. It's America that has blocked this at the UN Security Council. Even other Western nations have backed a ceasefire. It's Biden blocking it.
So if,
and you say
if he's able to
better,
get
I'm so glad.
If he's able to get that ceasefire that he's been discussing over the weekend, you would view that as progress?
Anything at this point is progress when hundreds of people are being killed every day. But I would point out, you used the right word, marginally better. A new study came out this week that said even if you get a ceasefire tomorrow, 6,500 Palestinians will die in the next 6 months from the public health conditions. And if you don't get a ceasefire tomorrow, 58,000 Palestinians will die over the next 6 months. We will be complicit in that. It's our weaponry, it's our money, it's our diplomatic support, and our president can stop this. And I hope he does.
Real quick,
but I don't think he will.
Before you go, I mean, obviously, you know, this has become a major political issue for the president. Do you think that if it does cost him the presidency, that it should, given his decisions on this war?
What I would say is that Joe Biden has rightly said for the last few years that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to our democracy. The idea that he would risk not only his own presidency, but the future of American democracy for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu and Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich and the rest of the fascists in Israel is bizarre and inexplicable to me.
All right.
And that's how you know that Medi Hassan is somewhat left, but not left enough to not be invited on CNN and MSNBC. That point that he made there at the very end, when he said that I don't understand how he can, just basically coalesce with far right Benjamin Netanyahu, but he says that Trump is actually the biggest threat to our democracy, which the democracy shit is bullshit. But you say that, he knows exactly why. Mehdi Hasan did not become a commentator just yesterday. He knows exactly how this government works. He knows exactly why Joe Biden is doing what he's doing, because Joe Biden has taken so much money from the Israeli lobby and because the government is controlled by the Israeli lobby. That is why that is why Mehdi will be invited onto CNN to have this conversation, because he's not going to call out the money interests. He's not going to call out the real threat, where it comes from. The people that do aren't invited onto these segments. And if they are mistakenly invited on, they won't be invited back on again. It's just how it is.